What's going on YouTube? This is AK and you're watching Vlog More, and today I had a very unique video that I wanted to make because we're in contentious times. Election seasons are right around the corner, and for the past 10 years plus we've been talking about SHTF. And I wanted to make a video about the opinions of a lot of people that I've known about the type of tools that are to be used in SHTF and which ones are inferior, which ones are, needed. And I wanted to dispel, I think, some misconceptions from really delusional people and explain why it is, if you're a person that has a budget, what they call AR-15, why you'll be just fine in an SHTF scenario. Now, there's a couple of things I want to preface first so that I can lay the foundation of my argument in this video. First, I have a term that I've coined. It's an acronym. Us veterans love acronyms, that I call BAAPS, which is your real budget rifles that are like, let's say, Bear Creek, Anderson, Aero Precision, Palmetto State Armory, and like Spikes Tactical, for those who even remember that. And I want to just talk about why it is that I think that those rifles will be sufficient in SHTF. And this is if you follow 3 prerequisites. 1, have you done a reliability test on that rifle from 500 to 1,000 rounds? Okay. Number 2, have you properly zeroed the rifle? If you have, then you'll knock out any canting of, sights, or the barrel's not properly installed, these type of things. And then we have do you have any spare parts, like a spare bolt or something of that nature? If you've done those 3 things to vet the rifle, your BAAPS rifle, then you'll be fine for SHTF, I believe. Alright, so we got that out of the way. So I'm gonna make my case for why it is that your BAAPS rifle, your budget rifle, will be sufficient in SHTF. Now, I've got 2 camps. One camp is if you're an individual, you plan on being an entity on your own in SHTF, whether you be single or you're married with kids and you plan on being the sole protector of your family. If you're gonna bug off into the woods, or you plan on staying at your homestead or whatever and fending off attackers. That's one camp. The next camp is if you chose to join a militia and be a part of a larger organization, why still your budget AR-15 is going to be sufficient for an SHTF scenario. Okay? Now, let's start with this. If you are an individual, you decide that you're going to be the sole provider and protector of your family, and you're gonna bug out. Well, standard combat load, right, is 210 rounds. Okay? And to be honest with you, if, let's just say, for example, SHTF happens, most likely, like in every other combat zone that we go to, U.S. Forces goes to, we declare martial law in these places. Okay, martial law happens, and for those who don't know, what happens with martial law is that the military becomes the law of the land. They become the new police force. They still do use police forces, but the military is going to be doing most of the police work. So what they'll do usually is they'll set up roadblocks, there'll be curfews instituted, and let's just say they've heard rumors of certain neighborhoods in suburbia defending their property against armed thugs. If they hear these type of things, they'll go into those neighborhoods and they'll start confiscating law-abiding citizens' weapons. And the reason why I know this is because they did it during Hurricane Katrina. The National Guard went into suburban neighborhoods and took all their weapons. Some people never got their weapons back, but they confiscated them nonetheless. And it didn't matter whether it was a Republican in office or a Democrat, because Bush was Bush Jr. was in office at that time, and it didn't matter that these people were protecting their neighborhoods against assailants. The National Guard didn't give a crap about their political views. They went in there and got their guns. So if you have this weird delusion that because the president that you agree with is in office and martial law gets declared, they're still going to come and get your weapons. Just so you know, if you're in a situation where your neighborhood's defending itself, okay? I just say all that to say that, like, if you choose to fight against a force coming to get your guns, you're not going to last. You're whether you have a Daniel Defense or a Palmetto State Arms weapon or BAAPS rifle, right? You're not going to expend enough ammunition to be able to cause a catastrophic failure with your AR. Okay, you know, Iraqi veteran 8888 did a test with one of a meltdown with one of the BAAPS rifles. It was a PSA, and the meltdown, the gas tube blew after 411 rounds. I want to say something like that. And a lot of people were like, "Well, you get what you pay for." But I was impressed enough with that performance because the vast majority of us have semi-automatic ARs. We're never gonna put the rifle through that much abuse to cause the heart of the rifle to fail, which is the gas block, gas tube, right? So with that said, again, like if the National Guard comes, you decide you want to engage with them or just the military in general, you won't go through enough rounds. You'll be dead or be dead before your rifle fails, okay, at a minimum. Now, let's say you decide to bug off into the woods with your family or by yourself. Well, that combat load that you have, once you leave your domicile because of a contentious situation happening around you, I want you to realize you have now become homeless. Whatever's on your back is what you now own. And you're just like the guy at the corner, the four-way stop at the light that has a cardboard sign begging for change and for food. You're that guy now, just with a 3-day pack, rucksack, and an AR-15. You're that dude or that girl now. And so how much ammo can you really carry on you, given that you have other essentials, I hope, on your persons? You need water procurement, calories, shelter. You have to have all these things. Your whole life now is on you. How much ammo can you really carry? And I would say the minimum should be a combat load. And the reason why your combat load isn't going to be enough to cause a failure in your BAAPS rifle is because this is going to blow a lot of y'all's minds. So there's a study out there where basically it has shown that in combat, 250,000 to 300,000 rounds get fired before one enemy combatant gets killed. In the war on terror, Iraq and Afghanistan, with our forces, it's about 250,000 plus rounds get fired per enemy killed. Okay, you got to think about this. So the truth is if you choose on being your own entity, it's already astronomically low that you'll expend enough rounds to even be able to kill an enemy combatant. Now, it might be easy for some inexperienced, underarmed thug that wants to come into your neighborhood and try and take things. Yeah, that'll be an easier scenario. But if we're talking about SHTF, there are going to be other people out there who are highly motivated, who are well armed and know what they're doing, and they're going to be very difficult to kill. So if it's an average of 250,000 rounds per enemy combatant killed in a war zone with the strongest military on earth, what do you think little OU's going to do with your combat load setup? What are you going to do? Not to mention, I mean, if you want a more domestic example, we have the Hollywood shootout that happened with those two bank robbers in Los Angeles, where they got into a really, really long gun battle with police. Lasted super long. It was like it was like over 2,000 rounds were fired in that confrontation between those guys and police before they took them out. or before they were taken out yet, And so with that said, it's like you're going to have to expend a lot of rounds to actually take out another human being who is resisting you with another firearm in their possession. So this is the reason why I say, like, when people are like, when I hear y'all's favorite YouTubers talk about, oh, your Freedom Rifle or your Anderson or whatever, it's not going to be, I wouldn't consider that for serious use. Well, why not? What do you think people are going to be doing with their ARs? They're not going to be expending that much ammo. If you're on your own, your combat load is what you have on you. Once those rounds are expended and fired, you have no more. It's not a video game where you're going to kill a reservist and then take his ammo and then run off back into the woods. It's not going to work like that. Your job as a citizen at that point in SHTF needs to be lay down suppressing fire if you do come across an enemy or someone that is threatening your life. Lay down the suppressing fire, get them to duck, take cover, and then break contact. That needs to be the tactic every single time for for surviving this type of situation if you're on your own. Okay? And so, yeah, going back to that, with SHTF, if they send the authorities to your place to come get your weapons and you don't agree with it, really the only options you really have is to bug out. The police, the military and police, they're not your friend in this scenario. They've got a job to do. They've got pensions to protect. They've got families to feed. They're going to look at their children and say, well, listen, y'all come first. These other people who are pro Second Amendment, whatever, like, they don't really matter to me. When I have to show up to their home to get their guns or whatever, it doesn't matter to them. So if you choose to fight them, you're not going to survive expending that ammo, firing that ammo. If you decide to bug off into the woods because you don't want these type of confrontations, the name of the game is not using that ammunition. So your budget rifle, your BAAPS rifle is going to work just fine. It's going to be strong enough to handle the little to no shootout you're going to engage in, right? Now, let's say you join a militia and you choose to be a part of some type of rebel force. Now, me personally, I don't think a civil war is going to happen the way that a lot of y'all think it is. It won't be a bunch of dudes on a Gettysburg battlefield with AR-15s against other dudes that you don't politically agree with, shooting back and forth, and Uncle Sam's handing you magazines. That you're just running your rifle, back to back. That's not how it's going to work. Even if you're a part of I think what's going to happen is, because we already know we can't trust our politicians, whether Republican or Democrat, we know our politicians don't care about us largely. We know that they are all about themselves and their trips to Europe and their yachts and their fancy dinners and this type of thing. Staying in power forever. We know that if you have any common sense at all, you can't trust the vast majority of your politicians. So what do you think they're going to do? Get together and say, yeah, let's go against the federal government when they're in cahoots with them, getting kickbacks, getting paid, donations, this type of things from mega corporations, oil companies, whatever it is. These people are not going to organize the people and say, well, we don't agree with this, let's get together and really start some stuff. No, what it'll probably be is, worst case scenario, in my opinion, maybe a couple guard bases, or worst case scenario, active duty bases. They might say, well, we don't agree with whatever's going on with whoever's in office or what's going on with the Pentagon. We're going to commandeer this base and all the equipment and, organize. That's the best I can think of, but I think most of it is going to be a couple motivated militiamen, and they're just going to choose to be insurgents. I think that's the best I think we could expect, and it may spill over into your life, and you may have to use your weapon, but ultimately most of us are going to go along, I think, with whatever the biggest power wants us to do. And even though violence is inevitable, I just don't think it's going to be a bunch of people banding together, like saying, okay, we're going to like legitimately fight and be successful. I just don't see it being like that. And even if it was, if people really did decide they're going to have clear lines drawn of who the enemy is, who the allies are, you don't have access to these type of armories like, you know, Remington and stuff like this. These are big companies, you know, military bases provide a lot of the ammunition that civilians buy, actually. So most likely is going to be the ammo that you have on your persons is what you're going to have. Even if a militia would be willing to give you ammunition, you're still going to be, it's going to be very limited. They're going to have to conserve. So your budget BAAPS rifle probably won't see all that much, well, enough action to really, you know, to put it down, so to speak. That's important to know. It doesn't matter if you have a DD and a Vesky, you know, BCM, Knight's armament, all the way to the other spectrum, a BAAPS rifle, an Anderson. You know, if you vetted the rifle, the amount of action you're going to see, I think, is going to be quite limited. And if you do see action, it just won't be enough to be able to really like separate that gas tube from the gas block or cause a gas tube to blow. At most, maybe an extractor will break or something if you got a cheap bulk carrier group. But, you know, I think these BAAPS rifles are strong enough to take the abuse. Okay. The semi-automatic abuse, at least. Now, I will say, though, that if you want something a little bit better than a BAAPS rifle, but you still want to save money, I highly recommend these three manufacturers, Smith & Wesson. They've been known to put out some of the best AR-15s out there for a really good price. A Ruger 5.56, you know, those type of rifles. And, you know, FN has their own budget line. I think it's like the FN-15 or something. And they all compete with each other. You know, MMP Sport 2, Sport 3, Ruger 5.56, FN-15. Those are names that, like, you already know they're major companies, so they're going to have good QC. They're going to last, and you can build upon them. If you really, really wanted to dot your I's and cross your T's, cool. But ultimately, if you do have one of these and, you know, you're happy with it and you've been doing a lot of training with it, your budget AR is the best because most likely you have saved a lot of money. And because of that, you've been able to train better than what someone with a Daniel Defense can say, I'm sure. So that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope I gave you a unique perspective. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comment section below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see y'all later. Peace.